walk you through setting up a repository on GitHub, saving some work there, and having a public repository where you can showcase a portfolio of your best stuff. We'll do this in 10 minutes. A couple of prerequisites. We're going to be using the Git version control system, so obviously you need Git. You want a terminal that runs some kind of shell like bash. If you're an OS X user, you've already got that in the Applications Utilities folder. If you're a Windows user, when you install Git from this URL, you'll get the option to install Git bash with it, and that's a good option to take. You'll also need to set up an account on GitHub, so go ahead and do that. And when you've got all of those three things ready, we can get going. I have an account on GitHub already, and now I'm going to create a new repository. Here at my profile, I'm just going to hit the option to create a new repository. There we go, new repository. And I'm going to call this, in this case, portfolio. I'm going to use it to show off some work that I do in my CISS 299 course. I want to make sure that I leave it public because the whole point is I want to show this to other people. And I want to click this option to initialize the repository with a README. At this point, I've got a GitHub repository set up. It's got one file in it that's a README, and that's what we're going to work with. Of course, what I really want to do is work on that file, that repository locally, add files to it that I've been working with locally. And the way that I'm going to do that from the terminal is to clone the repository. In GitHub, the nice bright green button here gives you the URL you can copy to clone the repository. And the git command for that one-time setup is called simply git clone. So I'm going to type git clone and paste in the reference to the repository that I copied. And we're cloning away. And in fact, at this point, I've now got right here on my desktop a new folder called Portfolio. And that new folder has the README in it that I created through the web interface to the repository. I only need to do that once. Now I've got a full history of the repository here on my local, in my local machine. And now what I want to do, of course, is add files to it. I've created ahead of time some nice work. I've got a program called Awesome Code that I want to put in my repository. And so first of all, I want to make sure I'm actually inside the folder that I just cloned. So in my bash shell, I'm going to change directory by cding into that repository. I'm in the repository now. And I'm just going to use my desktop normal interface to copy a file into that folder. And I can see in my bash shell that it's there in the same folder as my README. And to add that to my repository, it's very simple. Git add, and then the name of the file I want to add. Then to save it, the Git term for saving a file in effect in a repository is committing. So I want to commit that file, and Git requires you to add some kind of explanatory comment whenever you save things. Making useful comments will make it easier for you to trace the history of your work and make sense of the different changes you've made. So I'm just going to note now that I'm adding the first version of Awesome Code. And I get a note that I've got one file saved. That's now in my repository. If I want to now not only have it saved locally, but back on the source that I cloned from GitHub, the Git verb for that is push. So git push will ask me for my username and password. And you have to type it correctly. There's a possibility I can do that on the second try. There we go. And now I get the message that it's been transferred to the master branch of that repository. If I were to look at the repository again in the web interface and just refresh that page, I'll see that my newly added file is there. Here's my comment that I noted, and this all happened just a minute ago. So at this point, I've cloned the repository, I've added a file to it, to the local copy, and I pushed it back up to this original source that I cloned from. And in effect, this is what you'll do in your normal workflow. If I made changes, or someone else collaborating on my repository made changes, I want to be sure that at the beginning of the day I grab those changes. I'm going to now edit directly in the web interface. And this is another way of committing files to your repository or making changes to files. But if I'm coming to work on my local machine, I want to make sure that if anyone else who is collaborating on this with me has changed anything, I get those changes. And git pull is the opposite of git push. It brings down from the source repository anything that's changed. So I get the message here. I've got new changes coming in on my README file. You can always check the status of your files in a git repository with the git status command. And here, nothing to commit, working directory clean, everything's good. You can add more files. If I added more files, committed them, pushed them back up, that's the whole workflow. So that you can change status, check status, and see if anything's changed. And that's it. At that point, you've got something you can show to people. You can give them a reference to your repository's URL. They can clone it or copy it and see all the things you've been up to. And Git will help you in many ways, but this is a quick start. It's a usual work routine with Git.